here just a few blocks away from PNC Park, burned by Rocky Patel, and we've got a very special guest. As always, we kick off Hold My Cutter with the featured smoke, and it is the Dark Star. Michael McHenry, our guest, of course, Joanne Harrop. There's a reason why she chose the Dark Star. Do you know why?
It's the ship she came in on.
She came in on the Dark Star.
Yes, she did. Yeah, she parked it out in Allegheny. Yeah, I mean, you dress like this, you come in just absolutely in your nines. You came in on a ship.
You got it. Yeah, she's stunned. She was not expecting that.
I don't think I was supposed to share it.
No.
Maybe that was it. Yeah.
That was off the record.
That was off the record.
Sorry. Rewind.
What a treat it is to have Joanne Harrop here, who's numerous awards, 28 years, and going strong at the Trib. First full-time female sports reporter for the Trib back in, what, 1997? The Freak Show year.
Yes, 1997. October 14th, 1997.
But now you've done just about everything imaginable at the Trib. You haven't left sports, because I still see some features regarding sports.
Correct. I did sports for about 10 years, full-time, was really pretty much what I covered. And then I helped out with the social scene, so the parties, and there are a lot of events in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh there's a lot of philanthropy here in Pittsburgh, and there's some great events. And so I was able to cover some of those. And then I transitioned to a features and fashion writer. And so currently I'm a features writer, and I write about everything. I write about food. I write about real estate. I do, as you said, sometimes my sports and features connect. So I've written about the Pittsburgh Steelers, the annual fashion show that they do. Just celebrated 50 years this past year with that. In terms of the Pirates, I've covered a lot of opening day where I roam the tailgates and talk to people about, how they feel about the season. I've written about some of the new offerings at PNC Park in terms of food and what they're going to be serving there. So it's kind of something different every day, and I love it.
By the way, speaking of fashion, no disrespect to any other sports writer, but is there a more fashionable sports writer in Pittsburgh than Joanne Harrop? And by the way, our guest received gift cards to David Allen. The showroom is right there near you on Washington Road, so you'll be swinging by.
He may try to pick up David. That hat.
Yeah. Where the hat? Because you're known for your hats. Where'd that start, by the way, Joanne?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wear a hat every day. I started doing it when I was covering fashion.
See, Bernie, every day.
I love that. He does. Yeah, he loves it.
I
a lot of
your hat
connections here. McHenry and Harrop, both catchers. She was a catcher on the Trib softball team and manager. Yeah. Anyway, so it started when?
When I was covering fashion, so about 15 years ago.
How many different hats do you think you have, Joanne?
Oh my gosh, I have lost count, but probably I could wear a different one every day for a month at least.
So do you have a hat closet? Or a hat room?
No.
Kind of. Don't lie. Don't lie.
I wish I did. Yeah. I actually have several hats in the back seat of my car just in case I need to switch it up. All throughout my house, which is probably not the best way. I have a few hat boxes that I keep, the most important hats in. But I think, a thing like a hat, it completes the look.
1,000.
That's incredible.
But not just the hat. What you add to the hat, like that heart you added.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of hat pins. I did just add this heart for, Heart Month. We're in Heart Month. We got Valentine's Day coming up on Friday. So I think it just adds a little bit of style. And
real quick about hats. I mean, I don't know if you know this, Brownie, but you have to keep them in certain things to keep, especially the hats you wear. My grandmother passed away, and we took all of her hats. My wife looks phenomenal hats. Love you, honey. But you look great in hats. How do you keep them pristine? You keep the shape, because you have some really loud, cool hats.
I do. I mean, a lot of times you have to sort of keep them by size, and you can stack them. You can hang them. And some of them, do get crushed if I don't take good care of them. But I try to find a place for them to keep them looking good.
Michael, how do you do it? How do you keep your hat so pristine?
I just crushed
and I think he could wear a different hat just about every day for about a week.
Yes, I could, maybe a year. Yeah, I kind of have an obsession. Hoarder a little bit, hat hoarder, whatever. Yeah, love it.
I love hat hoarders.
Yeah.
We are going. Hey, we're going to get to the book, A Daughter's Promise, but we're here at Burned by Rocky Patel. You might have written the first feature story, I think, about this place when it opened up.
I did back in 2018 because my story came out 2 days before it officially opened. So there might have been some other coverage of it. But yes, I was in here before any customers were ever in here. And it's
Trendsetter.
Yeah.
Trendsetter.
Again.
Just saying. Again.
You said it. This was the second one in the country. The first one is in Florida. And, you know, when I walked in here, I hadn't really been in too many cigar bars, but I've never seen anything quite like this. And it's more, my story was about, yes, there's beautiful cigars here and there's a wide range of cigars, but it's an experience when you walk through the door. And, you know, Pittsburgh is lucky to have something like this.
And,
Yeah.
and why did they choose Pittsburgh? You think Second City, they're in Florida and Tampa, Naples?
Naples is
It-
Rocky's,
it
where
is-
he started it. Rocky Patel.
Correct.
He lives there, right? But then
He does.
He's
Pittsburgh's
got one
number
in
two.
Indianapolis, Oklahoma City, interestingly enough.
Right.
But why
And he opened at
Pittsburgh?
the Battery in Atlanta, the new ballpark, the Braves, a few years ago when it opened up.
But what's your thoughts there? Why,
Well,
why Pittsburgh?
When I was interviewing them, they said that Pittsburgh is a smoking city. So I don't know if that
It was
meant
known as
smoking-
the Smoky City.
Yeah.
smoking hot
Yeah,
city,
yeah, yeah.
a smoking city, yeah, back in the U.S., you know, the steel
Yeah.
days. I
Leland probably made that famous, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
can I tell you something that Jim Leyland told me?
Yes, you can.
Please. It doesn't,
Okay,
even if it's
this-
off the record, especially, we'd love that.
Yeah.
This was one of my first years in sports, and I was at the Pirates, and I can't even remember what I was covering because I didn't cover the team as a beat reporter, but I've done features and things about all of the major sports teams in Pittsburgh, and I had introduced myself to him, and I probably told him, you know, I'm new, I haven't done this before, and he said to me, you have to act like you've been there. And I've tried to remember that, you know, anytime I'm in a situation where I haven't been before.
What great advice.
Well, it worked
Isn't
today.
that neat? Isn't that
Yes.
cool?
That is cool.
Yeah.
She walked in like she owned the place today. So, I mean,
She
It worked
did.
today,
I mean,
yeah.
and it looked like she had been here before.
Yeah.
It turns out she had been.
Yeah.
I didn't
Could be
realize
like,
she was one of the first
that's
customers.
Miss Patel.
I mean,
That's Miss Patel. Yeah. Nobody would have known.
I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Miss Patel. Well, she's got a lot of hats.
Uh-huh.
Your folks loved the Pirates, didn't
They
they?
did. And we used to come to games all the time. There was a package that you could get at Three River Stadium, and a lot of them were Sunday games. And my parents, it was great to, you know, they were getting older, and it was a good time to bring them. And they used to do the Pizza Hut pop-up contest. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we would be rooting for, they would just pull someone out of the stands, and if you caught so many, I think there were 3 pop-ups, and if you caught them, everyone got a free Pizza Hut personal pizza. So that was something that my
So you'd love
parents
this,
loved.
Michael, because we'd set up out in shallow left field, randomly select one, and this is like usually Sundays, I think,
Yes,
Joanne.
it was always Sundays.
So
yeah.
pretty big crowds, and they were always fired up about this. So you get the pitching machine, and you'd hit these pop-ups, and you'd extend it. Each first one was fairly easy, second one medium,
Just
and
a
the
normal
third one
fan, right?
normal fan.
Right.
Yes.
And to watch them go, try to navigate these pop-ups way high. You know, these
That
are
third
major league
deck's real.
pop-ups. Yeah. But the fans went crazy.
The
If you
fans
caught
were-
it, they went nuts. Of course, if you dropped it, they
Right.
blew the heck out of you.
Exactly.
But it was great. Anyway, so they love the Pizza Hut pop-up.
They love that. And my dad, well, they would watch every game on television, and my dad would watch any of the afternoon games, and then he would watch the rerun at night. And I would come by and I'd be like, Dad, you know what's going to happen, you know, but he loved it so much that he watched the same game twice.
I love it.
that
Can we
great?
bring back the pop-up? Like Pizza Hut pop-up, or we need to do
Yes, I
Pop-Tart
think
pop-up.
David Coppin's saying we're going to. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. That's going to be a new feature. Got
I
it.
like that.
Love it. Yeah.
Actually, it would be unbelievable to
Yeah.
bring that back.
Yeah.
He's tremendous. I know, I'm
Love
sure it's probably something to do with insurance is why I'm guessing.
Oh,
I don't know if
they'll
any
be-
other team does it.
I don't know.
They raced the Flash or Freeze
Oh,
down
that's
in
a good
Atlanta.
call.
I mean, you see guys
That's
blow
a
their
good
hamstrings
call.
and everything else.
No,
They'll
that's
be
a
fine.
great point.
I mean, I'd go down to Hero if
Yeah.
I was go out there, try your best, maybe catch it, maybe don't, but I'm going to leave it all out there.
That's
I bet
not
the
a bad
Savannah
idea.
Bananas do
Well,
that or
Savannah
something
Bananas.
like
What if
that.
we had McHenry be the guy that caught the pop-ups, but we had to do some kind of a handicap where you'd be blindfolded until it was like halfway up there. Ooh,
I like it.
I think we're into something.
I like it. I like that.
Wow,
Yeah.
this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
All right, I
Or-
want my cut of that. If
Yeah,
we do
yeah, you
it.
will. Yeah.
You got it. You got it. Get
Hey,
a piece
Joanne,
of pizza.
so all the have you thought about how many opening days you attended, either as a fan or for features and so
You
on?
know, a lot. I don't have a count on them, but a friend and I from the Trib, we went to the very first game at PNC Park, and we were scalping tickets, and it took us a while to get 2 tickets into it.
Did you go to the first regular season game or the exhibition game?
It was a regular season
Okay.
game, yes. And then I've covered the home opener for several years in terms of, like I said, walking through the parking lot, talking to fans about, because it's a great atmosphere, and everyone's generally happy on that day. So
Yeah.
it's a great time to be a Pirates fan on opening day.
So
Is there a year that sticks out for you, opening day wise? Like, excitement was maybe a little bit different.
Well, in terms of weather, it was last year because we had everything. We had snow, we had sleet, we
Isn't that
had
the
rain,
truth?
we had sun, we had cold.
Yes.
It just gave you the full experience in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Exactly. I definitely remember. But I think, walking through the tailgates, people are just so happy on the home opener. It's just it's hard to.
There's nothing like it in sports.
There's nothing
really
like
isn't.
it in sports.
Yeah.
This year should be special.
Yeah.
Could be.
It will be.
Could be kind of, I guess, phenomenal if Garrett Cole pitches against Paul Skeens,
Ooh.
right? Juggernaut versus
Oh.
Juggernaut, first rounder.
Wow.
First rounder. Yeah.
Wow. You
Just
know
saying.
they're going to try and set that up.
I hope
somehow.
so.
Line it up. Yeah.
That would be the.
Yeah. The
yeah.
ticket. That would be the
That
ticket.
would be the ticket.
You could
That
write
would
a
be the
story
ticket.
about that, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I could write a story about
Yeah,
that for
But
sure.
you also write stories not about, like you say, the fans, but you've written stories about like the pierogi races.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
The-
because right after the pandemic, they moved the pierogi races to the Clemente Bridge.
Yeah.
And-
It's
and-
my dream to run in the pierogi race. I want to be Hannah, personally. I want the bag.
Yeah, but
You
in the,
need a
in the
purse, that's
ballpark,
right.
not on the bridge.
Either way.
Oh,
But that's
okay.
when I first started trying.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've written about the Renegades, Chris Miller, who
Yeah.
leads that group. And
They're great.
I always say it's not opening day until the Renegades have arrived. So I think that's been fun. At the end of the season, I wrote about the Pirates partner to donate any leftover food after every homestand.
Oh, that's nice.
Because
Wow.
a lot of times that
Yeah.
it's hard to know how many people you're going to have for a homestand, and you can't. Some of the stuff you can keep till the next homestand, but some of it you can't. So 412 Food Rescue, they've donated thousands of pounds of food. to
That's
that.
amazing.
That's great.
That's amazing.
And a lot of people don't know that, and the other sports teams do that as well.
That's cool. In addition to stuff around the ballpark and regarding the Pirates, you do special features on things like that, the new entertainment venue, which should be opening up sometime in 2025.
That's correct,
Right?
and that's right. That's close to PNC Park. That's going to just give fans an extra place to stop, whether it's before a game. They're going to have a big screen TV at some point where they can watch games there if something's sold out or they don't have a ticket for it. And after games, and even when there's not a game going on the north side. I mean, I feel like the North Shore is vibrant as ever. I mean,
Yes.
there's so many things coming, and I think something like that gives you not just food. I mean, there's an experience. There's going to be a beer garden. And there's going to be some apartments there too.
That
so
big screen's
people
going to
could
be
just-
wild.
It kind of makes me think about college game day,
Yeah.
right? Kind of that experience.
Well, can you imagine,
my
though,
gosh.
Joanne, if the Pirates get back in the postseason, like the watch parties, how cool
my
those are
gosh.
going to be?
Another thing,
I mean-
Dave, it'd be cool to do the pregame out there. I'm just saying. I mean,
A lot of
get
ideas.
the fans behind
Toss them
us.
along. A lot of ideas
maybe we
here
call
at Burn by
McAfee
Rocky
as a
Patel.
guest,
And again,
just
make sure
saying.
Joanne gets a cut of it, whatever happens.
He's a
Oh, yeah.
Pittsburgher.
Yeah, that's right.
McAfee,
That's
so
right.
He
Yeah.
might. I mean,
He
people,
loves Hold My Cutter, by the way.
McAfee
Oh,
does?
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Well,
I'm assuming.
who doesn't?
Yeah, right?
I mean, people love that with game day. I'm a Penn State graduate, so anytime game day has been covering a Penn State game, and they're there all day, so it gives the fans an entire day experience.
Right. And you know all about that, right? I'm sure that's probably remarkable when you think about how fun that is for fans. I know the kids love it, but you're seeing 40, 50, 60-year-old men and women just going nuts
I know.
on those days. Because
I
it is
know.
all about the experience.
Well, I feel like sports sports is that one thing that connects people of all ages, and it brings people back to when they were in college or when they were younger. And I think, especially with, there's a lot of seriousness in the world, so sometimes it's nice to have something that's not so serious, although I know we take our sports seriously, but it's a game. They're games.
Amen.
Joanne, you grew up in Greenfield, didn't you?
I did.
Greenfield girl?
Yes.
So you're friends with the McCarthys. Mike?
It's an amazing family. I went to grade school with Mike McCarthy, and, Greenfield, there's no other place like it. And there's a little bar restaurant there. It's called Big Jim's. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Big Jim. I don't know Big Jim, but I'd like to know Big Jim.
You got to get
Iconic.
to Big Jim's.
Yep.
Yes. And it's just, there's just something about growing up in a neighborhood in Pittsburgh. And, Pittsburgh has 90 neighborhoods. So everyone says their neighborhood is like the best neighborhood.
It's so
But-
It's
confusing.
such great competition
It's
amongst
so
neighborhoods.
confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I need,
so
I need,
great.
I need a appendix to
Yeah,
figure it
yeah.
out. Like it's
Yeah.
just too much.
Yep.
It's like, where am I now? Yeah. So
Well, that's true. And it is sometimes hard to understand. Like, there's so many neighborhoods if you didn't grow up here, but if you did, you understand, and you have your neighborhood is the neighborhood.
I mean, in Tennessee, counties were like state-sized.
Yes.
So you could be like, oh, live in Williamson County. That's it. Like, you drive and drive, you're still in Williamson County.
Right.
Here you go 4 feet. I'm in a township. I'm in a suburb.
Right.
I don't know where I am, but I know I'm in Pittsburgh. So I just say that every time.
Well, when Mike McCarthy, he was with the Dallas Cowboys, and before that, he was with the Green Bay Packers. And when they would be playing on television, my mother would be like, "Oh, the Greenfield Packers are playing."
That's great.
So you adopted him. I love it.
That's great.
Yes. And in a way, she was right.
So Greenfield, then you Penn State, you mentioned that.
Correct.
Writing always something you wanted to do, by the way?
Well, yes, but I was derailed a little bit. So when I was in high school, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, Sacred Heart,
Yep.
which is in East Liberty.
Mhm.
And I was the sports editor of the newspaper because there were no boys there. So when I went to Penn State and talked to my advisor about what I wanted to do, I said I want to be a sports writer. And he kind of steered me away from that because, that was, okay, I'm going to tell you, it was 1982, so it was a while ago. And there weren't a lot of female sports reporters. I think Leslie Visser was probably one of the few at that time. And so he suggested I get a business degree. So I got a marketing degree.
Smart.
Smart. Well, so
Until
Yeah.
so I got a job in sales, and I sold office equipment, and it was just not my passion.
Where?
It was called Frieden Alcatel, the competitor to Pitney Bowes
In Pittsburgh?
mailing machines. Yes.
Okay.
In Pittsburgh.
You did that for how long?
I did that for 10 years, and
No kidding.
I said
You never liked it for 10 years.
no, but I tried to stick with it because my parents taught me to stick with
Yeah.
something. But
And sales pay well.
That's right.
Sales pay well.
Yeah.
That's correct. Well, at times it did. So I came home one night and I told my husband, I said, I'm going to leave this job and I'm going to become a sports writer.
No.
And everyone that I told that to had that same look.
Was it like this too? Like you
Yes.
just immediate?
It was immediate. Yes.
What did he say when you said that?
He was like, well, that's like total opposite of what you're doing, because it was,
Yeah.
and but he supported me through it, and he eventually did a career change, which he said I inspired him to do. So
Trendsetter.
Yeah, there we go again.
Hey,
Yeah.
Here we go again.
he was an accountant, and then he became a teacher. So now he's doing what he loves.
for him.
But yeah, it took me a while. It took me almost 2 years to get hired because I didn't have a lot of experience. I didn't have the journalism degree. So at the time, the Trib was expanding into Pittsburgh because there was a strike between the Press and the Post-Gazette. The Press folded. The Trib was a Westmoreland County-based paper. Our publisher started bringing papers into Pittsburgh because people wanted a newspaper. They wanted to hold a newspaper. And so we opened an office in Pittsburgh in Station Square. And I went to several places and said, I'll just write for free. Give me something to write. And the sports editor at the time at the Trib, in the high school sports, he gave me a story to write about a basketball player from Upper St. Clair. And so I wrote that story and I said, I'll do any other story, just give me an hour's notice, I'll get to it. So I covered a lot of the sports that the guys didn't want to cover, soccer, swimming, tennis.
For free.
Well, not for free. Like, I was getting paid per story.
But
at
of
the
course,
point.
that's how she started.
But
Yeah.
where did you go? You went to different spots and said, "I'll do your stories for free."
Yes,
Where?
one was the Greenfield Grapevine.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Did you do any stories for the Greenfield Grapevine?
I did.
Okay.
I wrote for months
What a
for the
great
Grapevine.
name.
Yes. Yes, I
She wrote
did.
about the Packers.
Yeah.
And then the Advertiser Almanac, which is a weekly paper, the Green Tree Times. There was a Kraft and Ingram Times.
So smart because
You,
you
so
needed.
you bounced around,
you needed
Joanne,
it,
to all these
right?
spots.
Right.
And then you started compiling stories. You got better, of course, as you went along.
She
Correct.
built her resume.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately.
Yeah.
So for a couple of years, you built these stories, and then that's what
Correct.
got you into the Trib. That's the door.
Correct.
Opens. Yeah.
Correct. And the managing editor at the Trib called me in, and I had set up an interview with him saying, I'm going to come in and I'm going to convince you why you want to hire me. So I go in and I'm talking to him. I give him my whole sales pitch, which I guess there was an advantage to being in sales. And
Told
he said,
ya.
and he said, well, I have a news position if you want it. And I said, no. I said,
No.
I want sports. I've been, and he said, well, can you wait a few months? There might be an opening. I said, I'll wait.
So you
about-
knew exactly what you wanted. You were locked in on that
I was
target.
locked in, right.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
about 4 months later, he called me in and he said he had a sports opening.
What a great story to
Yeah.
do it, to drop everything and then to write essentially for free for almost 2 years.
Well, after having a
build the
job
resume,
for
after
10
having
years,
a-
where
By the way,
she was a great saleswoman. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, you're probably better than you say, but still, 10 years in sales. Did you dislike it from day one for 10 years?
No, I didn't dislike it from day one, but I just felt like I wasn't passionate about
Yeah.
it. So that was because it was, when I sold someone a piece of equipment, it really helped them, make their
Yeah.
job easier. Like there was some satisfaction in that, but I just, deep in my heart, this is what I wanted to do.
You seem like you probably love the people aspect of it, but you probably love the stories that you got to hear from them.
Oh, sure.
And you probably wanted to tell it
Yes.
because you just ooze somebody that wants to bring things to light. So like that's really, really neat. I'm glad you followed your passion. I'm glad you're here today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you
problem.
for having me.
What's your favorite story that stands out?
Well, people ask me this all the time, and it was a story about my mother. So I had written a story about living with her in the nursing home for those 85 days back in December of 2020, and the story won a National Edward R. Murrow Award, and so that will always be my favorite story. And the Trib, our president, Jennifer Bertetto, I don't know if you've ever met her.
I don't know if I have.
She was so invested in the story that she helped me publish the book.
We want to get to that. But aside from this, we want to get into details about A Daughter's Promise, the book. But aside from, is there a sports story that stands out? Maybe even.
Well, one of the first sports stories I covered were the powerboat races
Oh man.
over on the regatta.
Now, Joanne, was this before they changed it because somebody got?
Yes.
There was a
And
bad
s-
crash.
Right.
Into
And
the bank.
so I'm like, oh, I'll cover that. That'll be fun. These boats going around the river. And so one of the editors at the paper was like, okay, great. But they usually crash. So if something happens, you need to call the city desk. And I'm just like, I'm a sports writer. Like, I'm writing about the boats going around. Well, of course, the first or second lap, they crashed. And there was a gentleman who they had to perform CPR on him. And I actually interviewed him later. And I said, well, can you talk about the experience? And he was like, I feel pretty good for someone who was dead. I
Jeez.
was like, oh my gosh. So that was fun. I covered a lot of Mario Lemieux's golf tournaments.
Oh.
So I got to interview Michael Jordan, not in a one-on-one,
Okay.
but like
Yeah,
to
just,
be
it's
in the
just
same,
casual
Yeah,
to interview
yeah. Right.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
to be in the same space. And then there was one time that Billie Jean King was coming for a tennis exhibition out in Monroeville, and I was at my desk and I'm in the sports department with all the guys, and so I pick up my phone and of course I say, Billie Jean, so nice to talk to you. And they're like, you're talking to Billie Jean King? You're talking to Billie Jean? And I was like, yes.
Quiet. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Act like
exactly.
you've been here before.
Right, exactly.
Calm
so
down,
that was pretty cool. I covered, there was an ice skating event at Civic Arena, and there were ice dancers there, and they were in couples, and the male had the female up in the air, and his toe got caught, and he dropped her on the ice, and that was a
Horrific injury.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
tough. But she ended up being okay. We interviewed her the next day, and she was okay. I'm trying to think in terms. I've got to cover Penn State women's basketball when they were really good, and so they were playing Tennessee. Pat Summitt
Oh yeah.
was the number one coach
That's where
there.
I grew up. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and okay, so then you know. So
I was signed ball by Pat Summitt at home.
you do.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Casually
Well,
drop that in there.
I had
Whoops.
interviewed her a couple times, and the third time I saw her, she remembered who I was, and I was like, "Oh my gosh,
That's
Pat
pretty
Summitt, really cool."
Impressive.
And I was going
Really
into
cool.
the arena, and there was I was trying to see like where the entrance was, and there was a man who was walking out, and so I was saying, you know, I'm with the Trib, I'm covering the Penn State women against Tennessee, you know, where's the and so, you know, whatever he's telling me, and I was like, oh, thanks a lot, do you work here? And he was like, yes, I'm the men's coach. He's like, everyone knows the women's coach. Like, it was just like,
Oh, my
everyone
gosh.
knows the women's coach.
That's outstanding. You know, they're bringing a WNBA team to Nashville. They're going to call it the Summits.
I heard that. Yeah.
Isn't that
That
cool?
is
Very cool.
Yeah, the
wonderful.
Haslam family.
Very neat.
Partner with some people, and they're doing that. It's awesome stuff.
Now you bring that up, Susie McConnell-Serio. I covered her when she was with. I covered her pretty much throughout her career as a coach at Oakland Catholic. When I was at Penn State, I was a senior. She was a freshman, so I watched her play there. And then when she went to the Cleveland Rockers, I did a feature story on her, and just, you know, Pittsburgh has so many cool athletes,
Amen.
both male and female,
And writers.
Thank
I'm just
you
saying.
for it.
I mean, it's been fun.
Present company
It's
included.
been a blast to get to know some of the
Yeah, we've
people that have
talked to
been
some
around.
writers,
Yeah.
Joanne, about the what journalism is like these days, and how
Right.
you've all had to change with the
Yes.
times. Every writer has.
Explain that,
Right.
especially from your perspective, because you came in as the first female reporter in sports in Pittsburgh, and that was a while back. You've done a lot of different things. Like, how has it changed for you?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is, you know, we don't have the Trib still prints every day, and we have several weekly and monthly publications as well. But a lot of people don't get their news from the printed paper; they get it online. So, as reporters, we learn to take photos, and a lot of times it's just with our cell phone. We shoot some video because when you get someone onto a story, you want to engage them and you want them to stay on there. So that's part of it. And also shorter stories, because people are so used to scrolling all day that they're generally not going to read a really long story unless it's like the one maybe I wrote about my mother. But, you know, you need something that's going to be succinct so that people will get through it. And we have the ability to know how many people have read a story and how long they've stayed on the story. So we get these analytics, and you can tell like what stories people engage in, and you know the sports stories always do well because it's not just people in Pittsburgh reading the sports stories. They're, you know, all over the world people follow sports. But I think that's part of it. Another part of it is, you know, sometimes people don't want to talk to the media. They don't want to give their name. They don't want to give their opinion. They don't want to tell you what township, much of the 90 neighborhoods they live in.
Why do you think that is?
I think just people are more, and part of it I understand. People don't want all this information out there, although it is easy to get a lot of information because of, you know, with the internet. I think that's part of it. I don't know, because it's hard for me because most of the stories I do are positive, nice stories. I'm not doing a big investigative piece where I can see where sometimes people might be a little bit less leery, more leery about talking to the media. But, you know, it's just you have to respect the person that you're talking to. So if I'm interviewing you and you just say, I'd rather not use my name, okay, great. I respect that. I appreciate it, and move on. Like, you can't, before you used to be like, come on, Craig, like, but no, that's not the way
to build the
do it.
trust. Yeah, you have to do that, of course.
Correct.
But do you
Correct.
think that your job though has changed in terms of how you interview someone, how you present the story? That's not changed because of the internet and the fact that the newspaper's not print, right? That really hasn't changed much.
No.
Do you have to be more involved in social media though, don't you, than ever before?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times that's how we get people for our
Yeah.
stories. We
Yeah.
put something out there or we promote a story that way because that's where people are seeing it. So yes, that, and you mentioned trust. A lot of it is building trust with the person that you're interviewing and the relationship. I mean, there are people that I have known it'll be 28 years in October. So they might call me with a tip or they might be like, okay, I'll talk to her because I've talked to her before and, she's quoted me the right way. I mean, that's very important. And, I think, most journalists in this town are really professional. And I just think sometimes other people create a situation where it's not good for us journalists. But, I think Pittsburgh, we have a lot of really talented journalists who appreciate the profession and do it well.
How do you decide what story to pursue? Because you've touched so many different lanes. I mean, you're on a 6-lane highway, changing lanes. Which lane do you stay in, and how do you decide?
That's a very good question. Once a week, I meet with my editor, and I give her some suggestions of stories that I want to do. She will offer up stories that she thinks, might be good to do.
How do you find those stories, by chance?
Well,
Little research?
Research, like you say, social media. I might see Burned by Rocky Patel is opening in 2 years or 1 year or 6 months or whatever. So I'll put that on my list and talk to her about it. There are public relations people, media relations people that will send us, an email. Come Tuesday afternoon, this is what you're going to learn about what's new at PNC Park this year. So some of the things people send to us, some of them we find, and some of them I just think it'd be really cool to know a particular thing, and so I just say, hey, let's like do it, and usually she's pretty open to that, so I think that helps too.
Do you or did you look up to any writer or writers in particular that you really are fond of, that their style, or because you started in sales and so many years, it's not like you grew up emulating these writers, really. You almost forged your own style and so forth.
Right.
Did you write it all
Because-
during those 10 years? Like just as a hobby?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like to keep a journal and things like that. I recommend like all people should keep some type of journal, just sort of writing down thoughts, and which is how the book came about, because I had journal entries that I had written while I was in the nursing home. But I'm trying to think. Yeah, in terms of the Trib has always had really, really good journalists. When I was in sports, Jerry DePaula, I don't know if you follow his.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's been around a long time, and I worked for him for a while, and when I was in high school sports, and just watching someone like him and the way he handles himself.
Love that. I love it. He's such a good man, so down to earth.
He's a good
He is.
human.
Yeah.
He sure is.
Yep.
He is, for sure. And the photojournalists, I mean, we have had some great photojournalists over the year, and we still do. And I kind of, when I'm with them, I kind of see like how they shoot something. And so if I'm
So
on my
intriguing
own,
to me. So intriguing.
That end of it?
Their eye and how they tell a story through a picture. I mean,
Right.
And you get into depth with it. I love that you call it, photojournalists?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the fact that you said that, because they're telling a story in a different way. It's so cool.
The thing is, if you have a picture, and I know I'm a word person, but a lot of times a picture tells the story. You don't need any words to go with it.
Do you pick the picture to your story?
I do not. I mean, unless I take my own photos, but generally the photojournalists will go through and edit
I love that,
and
though.
choose what they think. We'll have discussions about it. Like, okay, I'm working on this particular project, and we'll meet about it. I did one of our journalists, Louis Rudiger, if you've seen any of his. We worked on this story where we interviewed 5 people who were 100, and we,
Don't look at me.
We did.
I got a ways to go, bro. Do you see him look at me, Joanne? He does all the time. What do you think, like tomorrow?
I did see that.
Jeez. Anyway, go ahead.
I know it's like a couple weeks.
Anyway, Joanne. So you five people that were turning 100.
Yeah, that were
Not Greg
100.
Brown.
That were 100.
And we're doing something. Like the one was working at McDonald's.
Wow.
One does
It's a Century Club.
the Century Club. Yeah. One will jump on an online meeting. Another one was still driving. And we spent time with these people who are amazing. But you know, when you're talking to someone who's 100, they only have like a smaller span that you can interview them or get a good photo. And so
they don't have a lot of time.
No, between naps and stuff, right? Yeah.
I mean, one of them's driving, one's on on a Zoom.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
That is true. I know. I mean, these they were amazing.
Yeah, that's cool.
The other one's writing code. No big deal.
Yeah.
It's just, wow, that's crazy.
But I mean, that was where. So when we do projects like that, we work together. You know, with an editor, with a photojournalist, myself, and that's really where you
Joanne,
get the best stories.
do you need to know what is going to be published as a picture? You said sometimes you don't need the words. A picture tells the story. Well, if there's a picture, don't you need to see the picture first before you write the story because you don't want to overdo it? Or does it matter?
No, there's a good there's sort of a good complementing, like the photo should complement the story, or the story should so yes. And a lot of times if you do the homework ahead of time, then you're kind of both on the same page. But sometimes you'll go to a story and you'll think something's going to happen, and then something totally different happens, and then it changes both the photos and the story. So you have to be open to that as well.
Well, you mentioned we've got the book A Daughter's Promise. It's a phenomenal book. It's a phenomenal story. But how it all came to be, like let's go back to the 2020 COVID-19. How old's your mom at the time?
My mom was 93
Evelyn?
at the time. Yes,
Okay,
Evelyn.
yep.
Yes. So she had been in this nursing home for 4 years prior, and I had visited her every day. And
Every day?
Every day.
For how many
for
years?
you.
For 4 years.
4 years. And how far do you live, or did you live
I
from
lived about
there?
17 minutes away, so it wasn't that far.
Every day?
Mm-hmm.
The same
Yes.
time every day? How long did you stay every day?
Well, like if I was working after work, and if it was the weekends, anytime during the weekend. And I stayed a lot because when she first went in, she had broken her hip, and so she wasn't doing well, and I wasn't sure she was going to make it. So I stayed, and at the nursing home, they had these window sills that they had these like padded pillows on. I don't know if you've seen that before. So I was sleeping on the windowsill, and one of the nurses came in, and she's like, "You can't sleep on the windowsill." And I was like, "Well, I'm not leaving her." So they brought me a bed. So I had my own bed. And so I'd stayed several times during those 4 years.
Any siblings?
I have 4 siblings. They all live out of state.
Aha. So you took it upon yourself, of course, being the
Right.
local one, that you were going to, okay.
Right. And you had mentioned my dad. Well, I also took care of my dad, who was 93, and I would take him
Who was a veteran, right?
World War II
thank you.
veteran.
World War
D-Day.
II.
Thank you.
D-Day
Wow.
veteran.
How about
yes.
that?
Some incredible pictures.
Man.
I kind of did some internet stalking.
Yes. And he had been on dialysis 2.5 years, and I took him every week for dialysis.
Wow.
Now
How many years prior to that, to your mother going into the nursing home, was this happening?
Well, 2004, my mom had a stroke, so I'd been caring for her from 2004 till.
And what about your dad? What years?
He 2013, 2013,
how
which
about
is a big
that?
year
Yeah,
for
my
pirates.
gosh, yeah.
Yeah, he went on dialysis, so I was kind of They were living in an assisted living facility, so I wasn't there every day then. But so the nursing home had a meeting because everyone was talking about we're going to shut down for 2 weeks, and at this meeting, someone brought up, I'm not sure who it was, what are we going to do with Joanne? She's here every day. And so the CEO.
How many people in the nursing home? I'm going to jump in these questions before I forget. How many people do you think, or how many residents?
We're living, probably at the time, maybe about 60 or 70.
Okay.
And
how much of a heads up? Like, they're saying they're shutting down for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Is it
probably-
pretty immediate?
Yeah, well, I had about 2 weeks' notice. So the CEO of the nursing home said, we'll ask her if she wants to stay, but if she stays, she can't leave. So the director of nursing came to me and said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to be shutting down for 2 weeks. You can stay with Evelyn, but you can't leave. And I said,
I'm in.
I'm in.
This is COVID hits, so 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I moved in on March 13th, 2020.
2 weeks later.
We were still in there. Yes.
That's the thing. They said 2 weeks, but
Right.
nobody knew.
Right.
2 weeks times
Correct.
2 times 2 times 2 times
right.
2.
I mean, no one
Carry the 3.
knew. And in April of that year, my mom, I could tell like something wasn't right with her. We weren't really sure what it was, and so one of her doctors came in, and they did allow for a test to be done in the nursing home. So they did a test on her, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was an aggressive form of breast cancer. And so I was glad that I was there because she died on June 5th, 2020. So I was there 84 days. That was the 84th day. And the nurse who was in charge came in and said, you can leave, but if you leave, you can't take the stuff. You can take the stuff, but I hadn't packed anything up. She said, but you can't come back and get it. We'll pack it up for you because it was COVID. She said, or you can stay. So I stayed in the nursing home one night by myself.
The day after your mom died, you stayed
slept,
an extra day.
I slept in her bed.
When you mentioned you were keeping a daily diary. At what
Yes.
point did you say, this is a story?
Well, that comes back to being around journalists. So my editor at the time, Ben Schmidt, I don't know if you've ever.
I don't think so.
I was telling it was like the first week in there, and I was still writing some stories, just interviewing people on the phone. And I said something about something in the nursing home, and he said, "Are you writing all this down?" And I was like, "Well, I wasn't really. I don't know." He's like, "You should write this down." So from that day, I just wrote something every day, and I took pictures and videos because we were, because I'm a journalist, and I would be like, "Oh, that's a photo op right there." And in regards to the Pirates, opening day was obviously there was no opening day that year, but we shot a video in the nursing home of the residents singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
Wow.
And it's gotten over 7,000 views. Wow. You probably can find it somewhere. I can find it if you guys want to see it. But yeah, so we kind of celebrated opening day, even though there was no opening day.
Wow. So it's in the book, Joanne. What were those days like, though? Because when they say we're shutting down for 2 weeks, you say, well, I'm here every day anyway for a couple hours a day, and I'm not leaving my mom.
Right.
Now,
and what did your husband
3, 4,
say?
5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 days into it, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, when I think back, I was just doing it. You know how like when things happen in your life, you just do it.
You said the next right thing. Right? You said the next right thing. You're like 2 weeks, got it, go.
Yeah.
Right. And so my husband understood the relationship that I had with my mom. So we would either talk or text. And also for the Pirates, they showed the '79 World Series. So we would, like, he would watch it where he wasn't. We would watch it and talk about that, and because that's a core memory, just
That's awesome
in general. But I helped out. So if there was a friend, and she's still around. She just turned 101 on Friday, and she's in the book. And so her son and daughter-in-law, her name's Rosie, and her son and daughter-in-law knew I was going to be in there, so I checked on her every day. And I would send them,
You had to be a godsend
Oh
for
my
some people.
gosh.
We'd play cards. They would have bingo in the hallways, so I would be the one paying the money to the bingo. I'd be the
So you're a
cashier.
bookie too?
Yeah.
Aha, card shark. Bingo.
Wow.
Wow.
And so Monday was bingo. Tuesdays there was a volunteer that brought us snacks. Like, she wasn't allowed in the building, but she would drop off snacks to us, like donuts, cheesecake, whatever. Wednesday they made French fries, so we had French fries on Wednesday. Thursday the nursing home would buy lunch for the workers, so they would bring me whatever it was, like pizza, hoagies, whatever. And then Friday was ice cream day. And there was a woman who lived next door to my mother, and I knew where all the supplies were, so I would get her like her nightgown and some towels, and she knew when I was coming by, and I would just drop it off. So, and I did some work while I was in there as well. Taking care of my mother. We talked about a lot of things.
Was your mother aware that this was the plan, by the way, that you were, when the 2 week thing happened, or were you just doing it and kind of she didn't realize what was happening?
She was aware. I talked to her about it
Mom,
when
I'll
I
stay
went
in
in
here.
that first night. Yeah, and partway through she was like, "Thank you for being here."
Is that part of the daughter's promise?
Yes.
That you promised her you weren't going to leave her?
I promised my dad that I wasn't
You
gonna
did?
leave. Yes.
When your dad was
Wow.
dying?
My dad, yes. So when my dad was laid out in the funeral home, I wrote a note to him and told him I promised him that I would take care of her. And I never thought about it because I never told anyone about it. And when I was writing the book, the editor who I was working with, Sue McFarlane, said, where did this come from? Like, why did you want to be there with Evelyn? And so I told her about the note, and she said, can you share what you said in that note? And I was like, no, that was just between myself and my dad. And so I eventually shared what was in the note.
So you put the note in the casket?
Well, I handed it to the funeral director, and my dad was wearing, he had a green jacket from the Masters that we had bought him.
Wow.
The same manufacturer of that green jacket. He was a golfer, so he was wearing his green jacket,
Oh my
and so the
gosh.
funeral director tucked it in his pocket by his
Wow.
heart.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So you write this promise to your dad that I'm not leaving mom.
And that was in
right?
2015, yes.
And then, so it's 5 years later. Now, are you, of the sibling, of the five kids total?
Yeah.
Of the 5 kids, were you obviously the closest to your mom and dad?
Yes, because I'm the youngest,
Uh-huh.
so I spent the most time
She was
with
the
them.
favorite too.
I'm
Definitely.
sure,
the
yeah,
favorite.
yeah.
Definitely.
So you spent the
No.
most
Youngest
time
is
because
always
but
the
you're
favorite.
literally closest because the others are out of town.
Right, but also they were older, so when they were all in school, I was with my parents, and then they
Ah.
all left after school, and then I was with my parents. So,
Hmm.
yes.
Wow.
Now, how you said your mom is aware that you're staying. You said, "Mom, I'm not
Yes.
leaving." The breast cancer diagnosis happens. How much was she throughout this process still? Her mental faculties was still with her most of the time.
Most of the time, until probably the last 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, because she would say, "Can we go out?"
Oh,
And I would write on the board. There was a whiteboard there. I would write, there's a pandemic. We can't go out. And she would be like, "This must be really bad." So I mean, I think she sort of understood
see.
it, but didn't. She would ask me "Can we go out?" And I'm like, "No, we can't go out."
I mean, it was hard for me to understand too. I mean,
Yeah,
just one of those
everybody.
times,
Yeah,
it
Right.
just couldn't
It was
articulate
chaos.
it. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So
Right.
I'm only certain that she was probably like, "What is happening?"
Yeah.
She was 93 too. So
Yeah,
right,
yeah. So you never left
No.
from that day. You did not leave that nursing home.
No. Well, we went to one appointment at the hospital. We went to. They let us go to a doctor's appointment
How far
Really?
in was
Once, one time.
at McGee.
Yeah, like
McGee.
What was that like,
Timing wise,
Joanne?
like 30 days, 40 days in.
That was in April. And
pretty-
I guess there's a funny story to this anyway. So, my husband came and picked us up, and we were all masked, all wearing masks. And so we made him, take us to Big Jim's and we didn't go
of
in,
course.
but
Gotta
we
go
picked
see
us to-
Big Jim.
And we were like, well, I mean, because it was a nice day, and so
Yeah.
we just
Oh,
drive
yeah.
around a little bit,
Heck with these
whatever.
people. We're out of here.
Yeah.
Wow.
A little freedom.
Right.
What was that like to be out for the one time with? That must have been a treat, really,
Yes.
even though it was going to a doctor's appointment.
Right. Yeah. You don't realize how much you miss freedom when you don't have it. I mean, because even, I had a few friends also that would bring us some meals so I could go down. I was on the second floor with her, so I could go down and get the meal from them. And when the door would open, I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so nice. The air feels
Yeah,
so good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Right.
Joanne, you were there the whole and during this pandemic. I mean, let's face it. There was a scare throughout the country regarding
Yes.
nursing homes.
Yes.
So wasn't it frightening almost to be in there?
You know what? People have asked me that, and I there was only one time I thought that. It's about 11 o'clock at night, and one of the administrators shows up at the door, and I'm thinking, why are you here? And he said that one of the workers had tested positive, but they were great about it. They got the worker, home. They tested everyone. It was on the other side of the building where my mother was, but that was the only time. I mean, they kept COVID out the whole time I was there. So I wasn't going to leave. I wasn't going to leave her. So I
And
didn't think.
It's amazing to me that you just stayed so locked in on the moments. It's easy to get outside and not really focus on the presence that you're in. We want to focus on well, how's the family at home?
Right.
How's my job going to be when this is all over with? What's going on? I mean, you're just locked in on just, hey, this is my mom. I love her. I made a promise. I'm going to keep it. Did that just keep you so narrow focused? I mean, because that's not easy to do when you're locked in. I mean, I'd be running around like crazy.
Well, she would have done the same for me. So, yeah.
Well said. So you had a big why. Wow.
Probably incredible, and it's in the book each day. But I remember reading the story in the Trib
Yeah.
before the book was published, and it was just captivating. Just
Yeah.
the fact that no one else had done, and to those of us who had similar relationships with our mom, there's nothing like a mother-daughter relationship.
Right.
That's over the top.
Correct.
But still, to appreciate so much the fact that you kind of made the promise to your father, but you weren't going to let your mom be frightened. Like, I'm going to be with you all
That's
the time,
correct.
Mom. That's my promise to you as well.
Yeah.
So there were some good days and bad days, I'm sure.
Oh, sure.
Of course.
Yeah, we laughed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was, we watched The Golden Girls. That was our favorite show.
Every day?
Almost
when you
every
could. Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
was
yeah.
on, we were watching it. Yeah, and
love
like
it.
I said, the reruns of Pirates baseball, things like that. I could push her around the hall a little bit
Yeah.
if we didn't really see anyone else. Yeah, I mean it was a beautiful time.
It is so dying, being with a loved one who's dying. That you're so torn, Joanne, because
Oh yeah.
it's this feeling like you can't get away from all the emotions.
Yeah.
You want to be there, but then you don't. You want them to pass gracefully, but you don't, because you want to keep them forever.
Right.
And to be there every day and to watch it. And did she progressively go down, or was it last couple days that
I'd
she
say
really
the last,
went downhill?
Last 2 weeks were really
Yeah,
bad.
last
but
2
other
weeks.
than that, it
Yeah.
wasn't. I mean, she was still like getting out of bed, getting dressed.
Yeah.
We were, going down the hall or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, I would say probably the last 2 weeks was where she was mostly out of it. But yeah, but she would. There was a lounge chair that a recliner that I pulled next to her bed, because I had my bed there, but it wasn't right next to her. And she would reach for me, like she knew I was there.
Comforting for her to know that you're there. Wouldn't
Right.
change anything for the world, would you?
No.
No.
And
Had to
I-
do over again, you do the same thing.
I would do the same
Yep.
thing, and it's in the book. And this is not my line, but I read it somewhere. She was there when I took my first breath, and I was there when she took her
Unbelievable.
last.
Wow.
A daughter's promise.
That's the way it should be.
Really
The way
neat.
it should
What a
be.
story. Inspirational. And you're a treat. You are absolute treat.
Treat.
And I know you said beforehand, you were trying to butter us up when you walked in here. You said, this is my favorite podcast, even before. She
did say it.
You don't have to say that,
did say
but
it.
she did.
As she was riding in on her boat.
And by the way, she's one of the few guests, not saying all of them, but she's one of the few guests who got the double meaning. Hold my cutter. She goes,
Nailed it.
She said, hold my cutter because of the device. You cut the cigar and the pitch. She knew it.
Immediately.
That's the catcher in her.
Yeah, absolutely. Easy peasy.
That's
Joanne,
correct.
thank you so much. Get the
Thank
book,
you.
A Daughter's
Yes.
Promise.
Thank you. Yeah, get the
Joanne
book.
Harrop, Reed Heavener on Hold My Cutter.